the scary stuff of what's going on in the court. So let's play and there's a change in our theme song here on judicial accountability. That's the selling out video.
Selling out is easy to do. It's not so hard to find a buyer for you. When money talks, you're under its spell. Ah, but what do you have when there's nothing left to sell? Selling out, I'd rather call it compromise, is easy to do. Sometimes you have to close your eyes. It's not so hard. Being rich is no disgrace. To find a buyer for you, put on your shoes and join the race. When money talks, it has a very soothing voice. You're under its spell. It's up to you to make the choice. Ah, but what do you have when there's nothing left to sell? Can't always break the rules. People who try are fools. When you get older, maybe then you will see. I've always found ideals don't take the place of meals. That's how it is and how it will always be. It's so nice to have integrity. I'll tell you why. If you really have integrity, it means your price is very high. So remember when you start to preach and moralize that we all are in the game, and brother, its name is compromise. It's so nice to have integrity. I'll tell you why. Sometimes you have to close your eyes. It's not so hard to find a buyer for you. Or remember when you start to preach, you're under its spell. It's up to you to make the choice. Now that we all have the game, before you know it, there'll be nothing left to sell.
All right, welcome back to Speechless. We're going to talk about the judiciary, things that happen in the judiciary. This is scary stuff. We're going to have a little fun with it too, but you got to realize when these things happen to you, it's scary and it's wrong. And so my special guest today is Michelle MacDonald from Family Innocence. We're glad to have you here. You're an attorney. And I remember meeting you, well, actually, I first got your emails. That's how I first found out about your organization and that you were doing something. And then I go down and film on judicial issues and presumptive joint physical custody, and that's where I think I first saw you testify and go, wow, this is good. Somebody else in the game here, you know, because it's a big issue. And then you were down there, I believe, talking about judicial appointments versus elections. I'm not quite sure, but you were down there quite a bit. And so I just kind of kept things in the background, and then recently a bunch of cases came up in the appellate courts, in the Supreme Court, about 50-year restraining orders. And there was an amicus brief that you put together, right?
Yeah, I remember you calling me and complimenting me on the amicus brief.
Oh, it was fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, and I know a lot of people out there, and I've talked to attorneys, and I'd say, this is what I want, and they go, you can't do that. If I do that, I'll get in trouble, I'll upset the court. And I says, yeah, but this is the truth. This is the right thing. This protects our family. This is what our country's about. And somebody needs to say it. And a lot of them wouldn't do it. And there it was. There it was in your amicus brief, but the Supreme Court wouldn't take it.
Well, it was a 50-year order for protection,
right,
involving children when there was no abuse of the children. I was dumbfounded.
Right.
So I felt compelled to do hours and hours of research and write an amicus brief. Amicus means friend of the court.
Friend of the court, yeah.
But I wasn't a friend of the court on September 12th of
weren't?
this year.
Oh, no.
I guess not. I've been a friend of the court for 26 years. And before I begin, I need to have you raise your right hand
Me raise. Okay.
Raise your right
I'll
hand.
raise my right hand.
and repeat after me.
All right.
I swear to report the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I swear to report the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
So help you God.
So help me God.
So I don't want my, anything edited. It should be twisted around because we're
On this show,
leave it on video.
anybody that knows anything about this show is we don't edit. It takes too much time. We want to do the live stuff.
It's live on tape.
Editing takes a long time.
So you say this is a scary show. Are there any bailiffs in the studio?
Well, I don't know.
I didn't see any as I was walking
No.
in. So
Well, we try to keep them out of here.
yeah.
Well, why? What's the big deal with bailiffs?
Well, as you know, and I think you invited me on the show because you heard through the grapevine when you were filming another appellate court argument that I was doing, that I had been in trouble in court.
Right.
And I think
yeah.
you thought for taking pictures.
Well, I heard it from the court IT person because I call, you have to call, give 24 hours notice, and so I called and said, I want to film this case, and they asked me, well, do you know any of the parties? And first I'm thinking, why are you even asking me that? It's irrelevant. I'm part of the media. You know that. I've already filmed down there before. And then I go, well, I mean, I've seen Michelle MacDonald before. I've read some of her writings. So, oh yeah, so it's Michelle you're filming. No, I'm not filming for Michelle. It's the issue that was of real interest to me, and I want to play it on my show. And he goes, well, she got arrested and was causing trouble in Dakota County. And I go, no, I didn't know anything about that. So that's how I found out was from the court.
This is just some IT guy.
It's an
telling
IT
you this?
guy.
At the appellate court level.
Well, he runs the IT for, the Supreme Court and the appellate court.
Because one of the reasons my story became public is I needed to file with the appellate court for an extension of a brief I was writing. So I had to tell the story about the scary story about what happened to me because I'm just a local example of what is happening all over our nation. And it is an example of thugs with badges, guns, and pensions doing things requested by judges. When deputy...
So in other words, a bailiff is really ended up being an employee of the courts instead of the executive branch? Or, aren't they...
The bailiffs are... well, maybe we should tell people what happened to me. I'll relive it here.
Okay.
I might as well have sneezed in court. Okay, but what happened is I had filed a federal class action Family Liberties lawsuit on September 11th.
Okay.
And it was against Judge David Knutson. And I was, he really wasn't supposed to hear the case that I was working on because I asked him to remove himself. We were starting a custody trial, and Sandra Grazzini-Rucki and her 5 children are who are the representatives of my class action. And I went into court fully expecting him not to proceed. I was ready, just in case he did. You know me. I'm ready for everything. I've argued at the appellate court level, so you have to be ready for any question, ready for any activity that they want you to do. And I asked him to remove himself. He was very aware that I had filed on September 11th the Family Liberties lawsuit against him individually.
Because you had to serve him.
I had to notify him. The way it works in federal court is you file it and then the federal marshals serve it.
Okay, wow.
So he had not been served, but I'm always fair to people before, I don't just ambush them with a lawsuit.
Right.
I let them know beforehand. And I asked him to remove himself from the custody trial. It was an actual trial. Have had 26 years of having trials, and he would not do so.
And this is a standard, I mean, this happens all the time, removals.
Right. Well, it does.
I mean, not all the time,
It
but
should.
it's a 25% thing, you know, I mean, I see
should.
that. If a judge has more than 5, that's kind of 5% removals, that's kind of a lot, but some of them are up into the 40s and 50s.
Well, it seems like usually I don't ask judge to remove. I've done it twice. Once in this case with Sandra Grazzini-Rucki and Judge David Knudsen, and I think you had John Miser on a short time ago. I asked his judge, Judge Carolyn Lennon, that she remove herself, and she wouldn't. Neither of them would remove themselves, and just the case law says that you know, if there's another judge.
Right, well, one, you get 10 days, but if it's been beyond that 10 days, you got to have reasons to remove them.
Yeah. And I think in John's case, not having her constitutional oath, when I was making a constitutional argument, is good cause.
You mean the oath, kind of like what we did here
just
in the
the
beginning?
oath, yes. Yeah, yes.
She never signed her oath
never signed her oath. Judge Carolyn Lennon,
for over 3 years.
over 3 years, did not take or file her constitutional oath, which judges are required to do.
Right.
That is why I asked her to remove herself. She did not. And the reason I asked Judge David Knudsen to remove himself is we have just filed in federal court a Family Liberties class action lawsuit on behalf of the person who I was representing in the custody trial. And I thought for sure, well, it was beyond comprehension, although I was ready because I had the best custody trial of my life, despite the circumstances, the scary circumstances. I was ready to go to trial. And when he didn't remove himself, we were prepared. And
So you went to trial then?
I went to trial, yeah, on September 11th. My first witness was Sandra Grazzini-Rucki, and she got up on the stand, and she testified to 17 years of motherhood perfection. I mean, I can't even tell you how excellent her custody case was. 17 years, same home. 5 children going to the same school system. 17 years going to the same doctor's office, the same churches, activities, you name it. She was the all-American mother. So obviously, I had it clinched.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so then the hearing
was the
went, and
first
you
day.
got what you needed, and no?
I got what I needed. So we completed that first day, and Sandra Grazzini-Rucki, the mother, the parent, was my only witness because I really, truly believe that the parents are the only witnesses to how children have been raised if they're present parents, and I thought it was great and wonderful that I had a trial that my best witness was the parent. Then day 2 arrived, and that was when the father's attorney and the guardian's attorney were going to put their witnesses on.
Okay.
Now, bear in mind that neither parent has custody of the Grazzini-Rucki children. The reason
At that time?
They haven't since, Sandra had full legal physical custody, lived with their children since their births, and for 17 years until September 7th of 2012. She received an order from this judge, dated that same day, that she was to move out of her home, vacate her home, and abandon her 5 children there.
No hearing?
No hearing. Have no contact with them by phone, third party, or be incarcerated.
Was there a warrant or?
No warrant, no criminal activity, no abuse, no reason. So since that order, still in place today, and I think it's some 420 days later, still in place today, and you had her on your show with me last week, was still in place. That in itself was a violation of Sandra and her 5 children's constitutional
Absolutely.
civil rights,
To be
and that is
secure in
why
their own home.
that is why I sued the judge on an individual basis.
And this was Judge Knutson that issued that order on September 7th?
September 7th of
2012.
2012, her custody trial, and again, the father doesn't have custody either, was on September 11th, 2013. So over a year later, and I sued the judge. I felt compelled. I had met Sandra at a family innocence event. She told me she was praying at the Vatican December 25th for a miracle because her children had just been taken, well, she had been seized from her home.
Right.
So it's not, her children weren't taken away. She was taken away from her children.
Right.
Which is a new twist on,
I
or be incarcerated.
I've never heard anything like that.
So-
I mean, that's just outrageous.
So I took on her constitutional challenge.
Okay.
I thought it was going to be a slam dunk. I thought the judge right away, Judge Knutson, would see that there's no law that allows for this, and if our divorce laws do allow for this, they're unconstitutional. And I brought a constitutional challenge. He did have his oath, so I didn't have to have him removed for that reason. He did have his oath. So I argued it, and he summarily denied it pretty much, without analysis. And
Did he
that
say
is,
he was going to write one later? Or, analysis of denying the constitutional challenge?
well, I appealed the denial of the constitutional challenge. I appealed Sandra's horrific order, the worst I had seen in family court. And when I appealed Judge Knutson's order, this was another parallel process that I was going through. The appellate court said it was a temporary order.
Oh, boy.
You know how
Temporary orders that last 5 years?
temporary order, and
Just-
I currently have just received my admission into the United States Supreme Court. I have a
Okay.
reason to go there now.
All right.
I've always wanted to be admitted just to put a nice plaque on my wall for Sandra's case, and we're filing within the next couple weeks, the United States Supreme Court.
Okay.
That piece, the fact that the court denied my writ of mandamus, which is extraordinary relief. That I just wanted the whole order vacated, and it's still, again, the order still stands today. And the custody trial, we're going to get back to the scary. So that's scary. This is a scary show
Well,
because we have
right.
Sandra, and we have her 5 kids that she hasn't been able to even communicate through third party, doesn't know what's going on in their lives.
And I know the courts
all
have
these
said
years.
that temporary orders can't appeal them.
Can't
I mean,
appeal
it's
'em?
just bizarre.
Can't appeal them?
And they last for
That's Minnesota
2,
courts.
3, 4, you're right.
You can't, they're non-appealable, and there is, I've argued it because there is case law that says you can appeal them, but they always think of them as temporary, so you can't. In other words, you can appeal a temporary, you should be able to appeal a temporary order that substantially affects your rights. And
Right.
I haven't quite fully developed, and I study for hours, I read every case, I leave no stone unturned, and then I write for hours and hours, developed the petition to the United States Supreme Court. But it's along those lines that, pretty soon, somebody told me, are they going to start temporarily seizing your bank accounts and saying you can't temporarily, and I say they, I don't know who I mean by they.
Right,
It's
well,
the system.
right.
Temporarily seize your bank account and just, you can't use it. And that's only temporary?
Yeah.
So, but that's scary for Sandra, and then it was scary for, I think, Minnesota and the country, that the order can still stand and be temporary, and temporary. It's been
And he
over a year now.
Yeah, and he wouldn't recuse himself, even in light of these things in the suit, and he knows there's a bias there. Some of these judges may feel, well, you're just using that to get away from me. Well, Yes.
Yes, yes.
But there's substantial reason, and that judge has to give a reason why they're not recusing themselves. They have to write out a reason. And he
Well-
hasn't done that, has he, Judge
well-
Knutson? And we have a picture of David Knutson there, if you want to drop that graphic there. So anyway, has he given a reason why he wouldn't remove himself?
Well, he just, it happened, it was a trial, so he just said, I'm not removing myself. He said, you can default, though, and I said, no. So I'm there
Default
with my
meaning-
client. Yeah, I asked him to remove himself instantly. I didn't have
But-
time to write a motion or have him.
Yeah, he said you can default. What does that mean?
That I could just walk away and default.
Oh,
and
yeah,
Sandra
right,
and I,
right. Well, that's-
yeah, rather than have him, you know.
That's being, I mean, that is not good judicial behavior. That violates the canons of good judicial behavior, because that's a sarcastic comment. You can default. You don't want me, just walk
Wait till
away.
you find out what happened. We still
Okay.
haven't gotten to why the bailiffs with guns, badges, and pensions
Mm-hmm.
have become nationwide. In a lot of instances, the personal thugs
Mm-hmm.
of the judge, because they're supposed to protect everyone in the courtroom. So, okay, day 2 of the trial.
September 12,
yes,
2013.
Yes, we start the trial, and it was, for Minnesota, there were many people watching this trial. In fact, they had us in a smaller courtroom, and they only had maybe 10 or 12 seats, and we pretty much had standing room only.
Well, that is a small courtroom.
Yeah. 10 or 12 seats in the back. They would only allow people in if they had a seat. And we started the second day of trial. Backstory is that they were taking, meaning the bailiffs, were taking nearly everyone's cell phones or any type of devices.
They're actually taking them? Usually they just say, don't use them, turn them off.
And maybe that was happening, because I was focusing
Right.
on my trial.
Right.
But I understood afterwards that if there was a camera, they'd ask the person to go back and put it in their car. It's kind of, I guess
Sure.
a camera is like a gun in the courtroom now, or
and
something
so
like
much
that. Nobody
for,
wants one in there like
So much for freedom of the
Yeah,
press.
so much
I
for
mean,
freedom of the press,
I
yeah.
can't go into,
Yeah.
without permission from everybody. Well, no, I should ask and say, I'd like to be there, and they should let me in there.
Yeah,
You
right.
know.
And I should say that it is not illegal to take pictures in
No.
the courtrooms or courthouses. You know that. It's while the court is in session, there's a rule. It's not a civil law. It's not even a criminal law. There's a rule that says that we shouldn't be taking pictures or movies while court is in session. But before court starts, after,
What's the
out in the
issue?
hall,
Yeah.
there is no issue. In this particular case, remember, what I told you is I had sued the judge, so I understood individually in his personal capacity. So I had asked him to remove himself. He wouldn't. We had an excellent first day of trial, and to me, it was we won the
Right.
case. The Mensis, which is the court website, showed the second day as canceled. So I thought when I showed up, he had told everybody to come back. It was canceled.
I mean, in order for that to be on there, somebody would have to say it said it's canceled, cancel it, and that has to come from a judge.
It had been canceled, and we were told it was on, but it was still on Mensis as canceled.
Okay.
So when I showed up with my client, Sandra Grazzini-Rucki, I went to the clerk's office, and there was a piece of paper there that showed that the hearing was still on. The trial was still on. Remember,
Okay.
there's a difference between a trial and a hearing.
Yes.
This was an actual trial with witnesses, raise your right hand like I had you
Right.
do at the beginning of the show, and testimony and exhibits and whatnot. So the clerk said, no, you can't take a picture, and then she brought her supervisor out and said, oh, we changed the policy. You can take a picture.
Change the policy, she
Change the
said?
policy, you can take a picture, and so I took a picture of the calendar and a few other pictures. One picture I took, yeah.
You
just
took a
know
picture of the calendar, why'd you do that?
because it showed that it was on, it wasn't
okay.
canceled.
Okay.
And I took a picture of also the big screen that it was on, and then I started to take a picture of the clock because it was
time.
way after the time that this trial was supposed to begin. So I was really thinking that the judge was not going to have a second day of trial.
Okay.
I was really thinking it was canceled, but he, as had happened the day before, he came on the bench, and I said again, as he resumed day 2, I said to him, Your Honor, I'm asking you to remove yourself. I think I asked for a directed verdict for my client, who had such a good custody case. I thought he already would be able to rule by then if he was going to rule fairly. And he once again said, no, I'm not removing myself.
And that's standard practice to ask every day and every
time. It is. It's not every day that a judge gets sued personally in federal court for family liberties and
but if
civil
a person
rights
needs
violations.
to make a point, I've seen attorneys do that, every day, and you see it down at in the legislature, in the Congress. They'll make that point. You'll see attorneys arguing, hey, I'm just letting you know, you haven't addressed the issue of jurisdiction or removals, so I'm under protest here, but I'm showing up just to be nice, but you guys got to do your job. Every single time, I've seen attorneys do that.
And this time I said something to the effect of, well, I asked him a question. I said, can you be impartial? Can you be neutral? Because as I told you yesterday, I had noticed you that I was going to do it. I told you yesterday I filed it, the lawsuit, and you must have, it is filed. It's still filed. It was filed on September 11th. It's September 12th. And he said, no, we're proceeding. I can be neutral and impartial. And within an hour and a half, I was in handcuffs.
What? Oh, okay. So what'd you do, you mean person, you?
Yes.
Was this part of your Halloween costume?
Yeah, right. Do you have any here? I can. What happened was I was cross-examining a witness, and I was in need of a 2011 court calendar because I was going back to 2011, you see, when I think I need to tell you that Sandra Grazzini-Rucki and her former spouse, they were already divorced in May of 2011. So she already had received sole legal, sole physical custody of her children and awarded the home that she was living in when a little over a year later she was seized from her home or property and forced to abandon her children. So it's serious. I actually, so I was in need of a calendar, and the judge said, good time to take our morning break. It was about 10:15, and he said, we will let you get a calendar, Ms. MacDonald. I said, thank you very much, Your Honor. And he got off the bench, walked out, and 3 deputy sheriffs came at me. One went towards Sandra Grazzini-Rucki, my client, and 2 of them took me in the back. So that's when I say thugs with badges, guns, and pensions.
Well, when I've been in courtrooms, when there's somebody that's going to be arrested, there's 3 that show up. There's always 3 that I've seen show up. So if you see 3, somebody's getting ready to get arrested.
So as I'm being taken in the back, as I recall, they took me in the back, and they took me away from my client and all her supporters. And Fast forward a little bit. They took me in the back. There's a courthouse jail.
Right.
And they kept asking me my name. I said, you know my name. You were just in the courthouse with
Right.
me. And at one point, I started to cry. I started, the attorney in me just left. I was in a shock. And I started to cry for my husband, Tom. And then they said, that's it. And they had me strip down all of my jewelry.
Because you were crying?
And my shoes and my glasses. And they put me in handcuffs. And they pulled a wheelchair up to me because they didn't want to be pushing me around. They had done
As
that a
they
little bit
were,
earlier. And I called them out on it. And put me in a cell. In handcuffs, a wheelchair, there was a camera in the cell, and a toilet. So I wasn't going to go to the bathroom, even if I had to go with the toilet, like looking at me. And I was in that cell.
There still isn't privacy.
There's no privacy. And I was in that cell, and about an hour and a half later, I was saying prayers. I remember doing the sign of the cross, because it wasn't easy.
No.
And about an hour and a half later, as I recall, maybe a little longer, they wheeled me back into the courtroom. And I remember being wheeled in the hall and one of the judges coming down the stairway and saying, having a bad day. It was pretty eerie.
You mean a different judge?
A different judge. So here I am in handcuffs and a wheelchair being wheeled back into the courtroom, not knowing really what is going on.
Well, why were they putting you back in the courtroom?
Because I had to finish my trial, didn't you know? Yeah.
Okay.
You always, if you were in court and your attorney gets arrested, they bring the attorney back in handcuffs to finish the trial without a client or a file. So, yes, that's what happened to me that day. So eerily, I am being wheeled into this courtroom. The judge is not on the bench. And there is the other attorneys there, the guardian's attorney and the father's attorney, and a few of their supporters. And I'm wheeled behind the counsel table, an empty counsel table, a table bigger than this, where I had papers and files. I had just, I was in the middle of a custody trial. I'm very prepared. I have all my paperwork. And the judge comes back on the bench and says, something must have happened during the break. And he said to me, I see that your client is gone, all of her supporters are gone, and your files are all gone. I suppose you can call your office. I had no glasses. I had no shoes. I had handcuffs. And I said, Your Honor, the bailiff took my cell phone. He goes, well, we're going to proceed, or do you want to be in default? And I said, no, we're going to proceed.
Wow.
And yes.
Default? Why would he even bring it up?
I proceeded.
Yeah.
I proceeded in that manner.
In handcuffs?
In handcuffs until about 3:30 that day.
Did they let you out of the wheelchair?
No. No, I was sitting there cross-examining witnesses.
And your client wasn't there?
My client was not there, and nor was any pen or paper. I remember seeing one piece of paper and a pen, just like way over there, but I'm back here in handcuffs.
Yeah.
So.
Where was your file?
My files were gone. All my files were gone. My pocketbook was gone. I had none. My glasses were gone. No glasses.
Yeah.
No, all my jewelry. I was down to, yes.
Who had them? Where were they?
Well, the story is my client and whoever was there took them because obviously she thought her attorney just got arrested. The trial must be over.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what I would conclude.
That's what you'd naturally conclude. So yes, that was. And then after the trial was over, Judge Knudsen looked the guardian's attorney straight in the eye and said, do you rest? And the guardian's attorney said yes. And looked at the father's attorney and said, do you rest your case? And he said yes. And he looked me straight in the eye and he said, I'm taking the matter under advisement, and got off the bench. And then they wheeled me back to what can only be described as an overnight torture. more deputies, more that we'll have to save for another day.
Wow.
But yep, I still haven't been arraigned. I left the
No arraignment.
jail with a release order. Still have not been arraigned on charges.
Well, we got a picture of.
I got a bill.
Well, you got your bill, but before that, your certificate of good standing or whatever.
Still good, in good
So let's show that. There it is. As of October 30, what is that date?
October 1st, 2013. The reason I got this was, the reason I didn't even know they created these, but the reason I got this was because for my application to the United States Supreme Court. And September 11th, 1987 was when I was admitted, and September 11th, 2013 is when I filed the class action Family Liberties lawsuit, and I just thought that was sweet because I want September 11th to be a different kind of a day, a ground zero for families. So.
Right, yeah, absolutely. Well, and then, so let's put up the bill.
Oh yeah, after, I still haven't been arraigned yet, but after, and I'm going to have this laminated, I got a bill for my, my stay at the jail. My stay at the jail for $25 that if I have a tax refund, they're going to take out of the tax refund and then they're going to charge another $50. So that's something that I think I need to have framed.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know.
So, yes.
You're in the club. You're in the club of those that have been standing up for liberties that get beat down by the system.
Yeah. And do you have a picture of the ambulance tomorrow?
Yeah, Family Innocence ambulance.
Tomorrow night we are christening this ambulance. We just picked it up yesterday. Again, Family Innocence is a nonprofit dedicated to keeping families out of court, resolving conflicts and injustices peacefully. And really, the biggest right we have, Tim, as you know, is the right to be left alone.
Yeah, exactly. And then your story has got picked up, and this is an interesting website. Let's go to the 6x1 scan converter.
Please, yes.
Family Law Courts.
Amazing. It's familylawcourts.com, Look at the bailiff section.
And we're in the bailiff section
here. We're in the bailiff
here.
section, and there it is.
There it is with Judge David Knutson.
Judge David Knutson.
And your story's there.
Yeah, just a week or two later, this website picked it up, and there's many. Again, I am just one example, local example. This is a nationwide issue where there's not a lot of independent judgments, and these with the bailiffs and the deputy sheriffs and the police.
And I've had my own experience with the bailiffs, and I concur with you that they're part of the courts. Now, Judge Knutson is also the president of the Board on Judicial Standards that oversees our judiciary.
Here's his history. Yeah, his history is his father was a state senator. He was a state senator. He was he practiced law for about 7 minutes, and then he was appointed by the governor to be a judge. And he is also on the Board of Judicial Ethics. So.
Yeah. Well, and that's a tough. This is a fascinating story. We're going to hear more from it over the next months and years. This is something we're going to keep track of here on Speechless. And people, man, you gotta get educated, and you gotta stand up for these people that are being abused by our system. So remember, if you don't stand up for other people's liberties, who's going to stand up for yours? And good men don't do nothing. Thanks for doing something,
Thank you,
Michelle.
Tim. Thank you
Thanks
for this show.
standing up for so many people. Appreciate it. God bless. Have a great week.
Thank you for the show.
Yeah.